Welcome back to Chaos Corner. It's me, it's the G.O.C. coming to you live to tape here at the lounge in Chaos headquarters. Here to discuss old school, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation history here in our new series. This is episode 7 already in covering the old school. So hop in the time machine with the G.O.C. and let's flash back to June 27th, 1977 at Madison Square Garden. Fans, you're not going to want to miss this new series. This is my 7th episode of covering the old school. You can follow along with me on the Peacock, on the network, the WWE Classics, and follow along as to what we're covering here on Chaos Corner in the G.O.C. We have empty bunker downstairs. There's nobody in the fitness room. The offices and the executive rooms are free because it's just me and you. And I'll say that to say this because I tell it like it is. Sit back, relax, follow me on all social media platforms, and you know what they are, in real time on Twitter, at Big Daddy GOC, and the GOC stands for the Guardian of Chaos. On Facebook, there's 2 accounts, I know, J Brony and Prodigio Fidelis El Guardian. On Instagram, it's the Guardian of Chaos, of course, Guardian of Chaos on the YouTube channel. Follow me on Gitter, Gab, Truth Social, Rumble. I cover it all in the IWC, whether it's the WWE, history like I'm doing now, live to tape follow-alongs, watch-alongs, WWE, AEW, MLW, the NWA, New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact, and my home at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. I try to cover it all because you cannot get to where you want to go or where you are unless you understand where you have been. This is my stress reliever, my giving back to you, my motivation and my passion, and you give back to me as well. So like, subscribe, put something in the comment section, spread the word, kick back and relax. We're going back to 1977. All right, fans, we jumped off all the other social media platforms. We're here on Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel. Let's jump right into an unbelievable sold-out crowd. Episode 7, Madison Square Garden, June 27th, 1977. We open up with one fall, 20-minute time limit. Again, Howard Finkel is on the mic at Madison Square Garden as the ring announcer. This is my first time I've seen the Fink. God rest his soul, the late, great Howard Finkel, who's also a member of the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, doing the ring announcing there at the Garden. And Vince is still solo. Remember, we started this series at episode 1 in 1973. We traveled through 75, 76. We are now in 77, the summer of 77. So at this point, I'm 14, 15 years old. These are my the people that I'm following and scouting and learning from. And so you can see that reflect in my over 3 decades in my career, in my over 50 years, as whether it be a fan, a scout, a historian, a smart, a mark. That's right. Yeah, I said it, a mark. And I'm proud of that. And of course, as I said, my over 3 decades as a pro wrestling manager with Hall of Famers down to young lions and future stars, and my home at Paradise Alley. I'll say that to say this because I'm repeating it all over again. Go back and check out these episodes. We open up one fall, 20-minute time limit. And again, the things that happened back in the 70s, in my youth as compared to today in 2023, it's almost Valentine's Day. It still applies to today. And the simplicity of it, and as I always say, keep it simple, stupid. And I said that long before Bully Ray said it on Busted Open Radio. No disrespect, Bully Ray. I already took the what's up from you guys once before. I don't need to go through any tables or anything like that. You guys know the history. So Howard Finkel is the ring announcer. Vince is solo again. Give him credit. Years ago, long before the scandal and what he turned out to be, here and there, whatever you guys want to say about him, whatever we've all said about Vince McMahon, he knows the business. He's been around. He's bloodline. Get it? So the first one fall, 20 minutes, Dan Nelson out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, 270 pounds, a typical heel for the day, against Jose Gonzalez out of Puerto Rico. We know the history, 235 pounds, went on to be the masked invader, murderer of Bruiser Brody. Let's get onto this match. That was the opening bout. I'll give Nelson a credit, with putting the boots to Gonzalez, pulling the trunks, the hair pulls, the whole 9 yards, working over the left arm. He's a big dude out of Minneapolis for back in the day. And we know what Gonzalez was famous for as a face back then, firing up the drop kicks, actually 4 in a row into a pin in 9 minutes, 46 seconds to open up the card at the Garden, summer of '77. Jose Gonzalez over Dan Nelson. 4 consecutive drop kicks into a pin. Let that marinate. We go on to the next match. And the debut in the Garden, I could be wrong on this. Go back and check and do your research. I like to do my due diligence. I have my notes, but we know, unique, unedited, unscripted, one-man show. This is like reality TV. You guys have said that. You're into my home here in the lounge. So let's appreciate each other. I already had espresso, no energy drinks. I'm onto H2O for now. So kick back. We're in the second bout here on June 27th, 1977. Follow along. I have over coming up on 1.8 thousand videos in history, from doing the history of this or book reviews or live to tape watch-alongs covering the current product, history, my own personal history, people I've been involved with. Go to the community section, check out the photos. Fans, you're not going to want to miss what's going on here on Guardian of Chaos on the YouTube channel. You're not going to want to miss it. Stand by. Have a sip of something. Have a snack. We're headed into the weekend, so I want everyone to enjoy the weather here in February. Kind of weird, kind of odd, hot, kind of strange, but let's take advantage of it for now. So on to the next, Larry Zbyszko, protege allegedly of Bruno Sammartino, 247 pounds out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He was the face back here in the time machine in 1977 against, out of Peru, 244 pounds, a stalwart for the day, a good hand, if you will, Rocky Tamayo. Typical tactics from Tamayo. Aggressive, but yet in the beginning of all these bouts with the faces, whether you're a mid-card, undercard, jobber, opening match, main event, or last match, the selling, the stalling, keeping it a slow place, working the crowd, which is always sold out there in the melting pot of Madison Square Garden and the city, and for the different ethnicities and characters and gimmicks, as kayfabe was still alive and mostly adult crowds there in the early, middle, late 70s of the OG. It's me, the G.O.C. in pro wrestling history. This is what we do here. It's my way of giving back to you, the fans. And in this, Zbyszko, this could have been his debut at the Garden in '77. Wearing down Tamayo, the typical things, the lockups, the wrist locks, a lot of mat work, working the legs, and short work for the day, 7 minutes, 31 seconds, via the pin in the small package. And no offense, Mario Mancini, the small package, Zbyszko goes over on Rocky Tamayo. A good showing for Zbyszko, and we know what that would lead into. Zbyszko was big in the AWA. He ended up in WCW, but had the huge war in the WWF with Bruno Sammartino. So it was nice to see, again, one fall, 20 minutes compared to nowadays where things are slow and take forever, but yet rushed, if you know what I'm talking about, if that makes sense. So Zbyszko, 7 minutes, 31 seconds here, Madison Square Garden, June 27th, 1977. The third match of the night from Auckland, New Zealand, 245 pounds, from the area here in the greater New England tri-state northeast metropolitan area. And I used to hang out back in the day and even had my 8x10 up on the wall. And it was the scene of a few WWE SmackDown brawls. And that would be at Paulie G's. And here's the connection. From Auckland, New Zealand, as I said, 245 pounds, Tough Tony Gurria. Good man, good hand, and what a face back in the day. Not too many people fired up like Gurria, taking on George the Animal Steele, 278 pounds out of Detroit, Michigan. We talked about Steele earlier. when he wasn't doing the animal gimmick. Well, here in 77, he's more of the savage beast that needs to be tamed, acting a little more crazy than we saw him in the previous matchups that I covered here on this new series and the episodes on the OG on the network. Go out and follow the cock, will you please? The Peacock Network. This is a rated PG show. Family watches this show. Come on, guys. We got to keep it PG. Let's see what's going on here in all the technicalities here in the lounge, if you will. So, again, George Steele started totally acting different at this point in 1977 with the typical foreign object, the unorthodox moves, playing the crowd. The way the crowd reacts, I can't say it enough in all these bouts, and we'll get onto that. And the selling of all the different gimmicks and characters for the day, especially for the time back there in the middle 70s into the late 70s. We started off in the early 70s. You know what's going on here in these episodes. This is what I make relatable in my way of giving back to those who are here now. Where you want to go, you got to understand where you've been, man. So, you know how Gurria, if you go back and do your research, doesn't matter who he was teaming up with, multi-tag team champion. He teamed up with Zbyszko, Martel, Dominic DeNucci. I mean, Tony Gurria was Dean Ho, unbelievable tag team grappler. This match, Gurria obviously ended up getting the foreign object from George the Animal Steele, going back and forth here. Gurria was a great hand, a worker in the day, the typical forearm smashes, the big kicks that were famous and popular during the day, simple moves, the common theme of simplicity of back in the day grappling. And remember, this is 30, 40, 45, 50 years ago we're talking about here in history. So the typical, and again, legendary arm drags from Tony Gurria and the tattoos. New Zealand boy. Tony's a good man. And of course, the crowd reactions, I'm repeating it again, I'm saying it again, whether it was against Steele, whether Gurria fired up, and the way the faces, again, it was crystal clear for back in the day. Kayfabe, baby. 7 minutes, 28 seconds. Gurria gets the object. It ends up being a disqualification before that as the animal hits Gurria in the throat. And there it is. After the bout, Gurria ends up getting the foreign object, was my original point before I said what the disqualification was for. But this is when Steele really changed over from the grappler that dealt with the crowd as a heel, as a bad guy, and went back and forth and was audible, into what he would later be known in the 80s and 90s, what people think he really was. And I had a chance to work with Steele on local shows here in the shadows of Titan Towers. But what his gimmick turned into and who he really was, and started back in then working for the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, his start in that company, and then what he was in the independents, and then in the big time of the WWE, and so on and so forth. So that's what I'm trying to relay here and make it relatable to what we're talking about. So a disqualification, foreign object to the throat, and Tony Gurria is your winner after 7 minutes, 28 seconds. We go on to the next bout, and a special attraction when he came through, and I've already covered him on this new series on different episodes here in Chaos Corner, this being episode 7 in the summer of 77. So 7's all the way around. Nikolai Volkov and the strongman Ken Patera, Portland, Oregon, Ken Patera, Mongolia for Volkov at 317, Patera 297 pounds, with Captain Lou Albano. Listen to that trio. Patera and Volkov in the day were the ultimate savages and bad guys, and heels, rudos, whatever you want to call it, especially for the time, against that Indian, as Vince Jr. called him, Chief J Strongbow and Andre the Giant from the Alps, the French Grenoble Alps, the French Alps in Grenoble. Let's say that 3 times fast. 440 pounds at the time. The Chief, 238 from Pawhuska, Oklahoma. And at this time, they were an undefeated tag team because the Chief and Indian Billy White Wolf, the Chief's partner, also teamed up with Andre in 6-man tag team matches. So I guess the big boss man liked the Indians. This is a 2 out of 3 falls with a 1-hour time limit. And again, the managers escorted their men to the ring but then left ringside. Nobody hung out. So it's Patera and Volkov against Andre the Giant and Chief Jay Strongbow. The crowd pop for Strongbow and Andre when they come in. I keep talking about it on these episodes. The common theme and the difference. And yeah, we get hot crowds in AEW and WWE nowadays. And certain events are hot and sold out on different nights in different towns. But this was every month, night after night, month after month here in the big arenas. Totally different from Southern Wrestling, which was in the smaller, intimate buildings on a weekly basis. I get it. Here in the Northeast, it wasn't that way. It was in big arenas, sold out all the time. So two different styles, locations. You guys get the history. If you know your history, that's what you get here. And of course, Patera's ribs are taped at the time. He was involved in different feuds. The Chief and Ken Patera start off this bout. If you go back to the tape and follow here along, the different highlights, this is, again, 2 out of 3 falls, 1 hour time limit. I have to definitely turn back into the notes here. 1972, if you remember correctly, Patera was a gold medalist in the Pan American Games. Let's not forget that about Patera for the time here in summer of 77. They start off, it's Patera and the Chief, as I said. They wear down the Chief, the tags back and forth, the bear hugs, the punches, the kicks. Remember Volkov's style. And then, of course, Patera was an Olympian. I don't have to say much more about that. Andre finally gets in. He puts Patera in a full Nelson, just like I said in the last bout, the 6-man bout. Bruiser Brody in the bear hug. Brody had to sell. You had no choice with the big man from Grenoble. Same thing happened with Patera. Andre with Volkov in a huge side headlock. The headbutts, the big push to the hands, to the face that Andre did on a lot of the guys. I mean, it just really, he was so active back then. And that's not even the earlier part of his career. But Andre the Giant, you can't appreciate what you saw of him in the 80s and into the 90s before his career ended, and then he passed away. His agility and mobility in the 70s was just phenomenal if you go back to the time. And when I saw him at the old New Haven Arena, New Haven Coliseum for the WWF at the time, was lucky enough to see Bruno Sammartino and the Valiant Brothers, and we've talked about all that in the different places that I went to as a young boy for the time, and just how Andre was active. In the first fall, Andre and the Chief go over in a disqualification. The ref disqualified Volkov and Patera 13 minutes, 46 seconds. In the second fall, Andre pins Volkov with a big splash, a big boot, and then his trademark splash back in the day. And that was it. It was over. It didn't have to go 2 out of 3 falls. 2 straight falls, break out the broom. The sweep was over. The total bout, 16 minutes, 25 seconds, I believe. And it was 2 falls to none. Andre and the Chief against Volkov and Patera. 4th match of the night in the summer of 77. A fantastic card. It only got better from here, just like it does on Chaos Corner. So we continue in the time machine. Back to the Future, Dr. Disrespect. It doesn't matter. The G.O.C. We go to former Worldwide Wrestling Federation. Again, we started off in 73, where Pedro Morales on episode 1 was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion, the Latin sensation. Then we went on into episodes 2, 3, and 4, where Bruno Sammartino, the former living legend, was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion, perhaps the best in history. We've gotten into where now, in this bout coming up on here, superstar Billy Graham is the Worldwide Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion. So we've seen the belt on different guys that we've covered here. We haven't gotten on to Stan Stasiak's run yet, or even the Russian Bear Ivan Koloff, but we will get on to that in the different, speaking of Worldwide Wrestling Federation champions, former guy who I saw back in the 70s. I'll never forget shaking his hand, his big taped hand for back in the day as a kid at ringside. And that would be one Stan the Man Stasiak, known for his heart punch, along with the legendary Ox Baker, who I also had the chance to work with years later with the Ox. But that legendary heart punch, and that's what happened here in the 5th match. In the debut on the other side, 225 pounds from Jamaica with the infamous, or we'll say the famous, drop kicks and kicks in general. And that would be one from Lenny Hurst from Jamaica. That's right, Jamaica man, Lenny Hurst, in his debut in 1977 at the Garden against a former champ from Buzzards Creek, Oregon, 287 pounds, Stan the Man Stasiak, as I already said, 8 minutes, 21 seconds, with that unbelievable heart punch, that legendary heart punch that was used by a few, but really developed and honed by Stan Stasiak, and of course, as I said, Ox Baker. We move on to the next bout of the evening, what I talked about, the main event or the championship match not always being the last match like they talk about now, and now AEW's into they're having their best match as their first match, trying to grab them in the ratings. And traditionally on shows, whether it be the indies or the big time, the higher the number in the card, the more money you got, and the more you were more famous or infamous, whichever you want to call it. It wasn't that way back in the 70s. Here we are, the defending Worldwide Wrestling Federation champion in the sixth bout, Superstar Billy Graham, the man of the hour, the man with the soul and power, the man who is too sweet to be sour, with the Grand Wizard, defending against, that's right, from Abruzzi, Italy, via Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or vice versa, 250 pounds, escorted by the police like they all were back in the day. You saw in the crowds and going back and forth on the entrance ramp and around the guardrails. New York's finest was always at ringside. That's how much kayfabe was alive and people were into this, in the melting pot, in a stone's throw from, Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty and all the different ethnicities and cultures and different melting pots of the world here in the United States of America. You're an American now. I'm just saying, man. So Bruno and the Golden Boy, Arnold Skaaland, obviously in his corner. Unbelievable. I can't say it enough. I'll say it again. If I said it once, I don't want to repeat anybody's catchphrases, but I'll say it again 1,000 times. The crowd reaction for different stars, even the heels, for Graham, the boos, the cheers for Bruno, the pre-interview ringside with Vince Jr. and Superstar, and he was jacked, and just the posing and for the day, and these guys locking up, and then the test of strength, and just how it went back and forth. 275 pounds from Paradise Valley, Arizona, wearing the tie-dye and the Kangol, the cap with Superstar and the golden blonde hair, and Bruno coming in, a little furry, a little hairy. I get it, but in great shape. Just typical strong man, always a little bit smaller, the underdog, if you will, but just so powerful looking and built. And right off the top, Bruno attacks Superstar, because this is basically one fall to a finish. I'm not sure if this was a rematch in the day. I believe it could have been. I like to get my facts straight. And of course, the typical Bruno moves and for the day. People say it was simplicity. I get it. I loved it. It worked. I can't mention enough how they played the crowd, the sportsmanship, the obvious heel and face, and knowing the difference, and letting it soak in with the crowd, and just selling off and grinding it out. And it just really, the showmanship, guys don't appreciate it. And that's how the guys that you idolized in the Attitude Era, or even now to this day in 2023, where it came from. And I keep saying that phrase, but the typical moves of Bruno, the kicks, the stomps, the knees to the post, the back body drops, those big right hands, the way he would bounce you around from turnbuckle to turnbuckle, rope to rope. I mean, Bruno's style was simple, aggressive, and forward. It was tough to stop. And there was no fighting outside the ring, if you remember correctly. The guardrails were a little closer, and yeah, the guys would fall out, the workers, the talent, and they would sell outside the ring, get caught up in the ropes, but you wouldn't see. Everything was kept in the ring, in other words, to keep it simple, stupid, as I keep using that. And no offense to anyone, it's a word, baby. So I just want to notice that I noticed from the era too, for as much as there was still blood and getting busted open, and how physical it was, whether it was forearms and punches and bear hugs and headlocks and grinding it out. I can't stress it enough. I keep repeating it. You guys must think you're watching the same show, but it's not. go through these different episodes. These are all different cards at different times and dates and different talent, but you see the 1 or 2 or 3 repeats or foundations or the things that I keep saying it, that keep it simple, even with the finishers and the begging off and using something like a full Nelson or a test of strength. I mean, just wow, into standing surfboards in this match. And it went almost 20 minutes. It went 18 minutes and 39 seconds. The ref, you didn't see a lot of it back then, but took 2 or 3 bumps in this match between San Martino and Superstar. Remember, Superstar is the defending champion. It ended up a double disqualification. Superstar kept the belt. We know not too further down the road, I believe in Baltimore, Maryland, Bruno got the belt back from Superstar, Graham, but we'll get to that. We'll cover that. But in this match, June 27th, 1977 at the Garden, here with your boy, the Guardian of Chaos, double disqualification, ref all over the place, a little sloppy, and they call this a draw. They call it double disqualification, but then they announce it as a draw, and that was the trend back in the 70s during the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. The OG style here with the G.O.C. 18 minutes, 39 seconds, double disqualification. So that's what you had there. Superstar retained the belt. We move on, and like I said, it's hard to follow these main events. It's something how that happens in the placement of the matches from back in the day to current day product and the bookers and who sits in Gorilla and who's in charge. You guys are learning a lot there. This is Wrestling 101. You're getting it for free from me. We have in a return bout, and again, I talk about crowd reactions, ethnicities, who's backed by who, the culture, the melting pot, the different ethnicities and how we all came together and how the product was just different and sold differently and how it is today. I mean, I don't know if I want to go to a lot of the live events today, and no offense against everyone. This is a return bout, one fall, 30 minutes. The European champion, 272 pounds, out of Germany, being escorted by, in gold sequins of all things, he really was the Hollywood fashion plate, classy Freddie Blassie, with the Baron von Raschke. It was nice to see the Baron going up against Polish Power, as they used to say back in the day, the Super Pole, 270 pounds. Wow, what a spark plug. Ivan Putski, again, I'm going to say this. First off, Blassie had to be escorted out of there because he was going crazy with the crowd. There was no one like Freddie Blassie, you pencil neck geeks. There really wasn't. You know, you talk about the brain of a dehydrated BB, but with Captain Lou, but pencil neck geek and Freddie Blassie. So he had to be escorted out. Again, that's the difference between of what happened, and even in my era of being managers to now in 2023. Yeah, my era. Unbelievable. The huge pop, the sounds for Putski, in great shape. I can't stress it enough. Even though he had the pond zone, nobody was over like Putski back in this day. I keep talking about it. Whether it's, again, I say the Italians with San Martino, the Puerto Ricans with Victor Rivera, Pedro Morales, the heels of Ivan Koloff, Waldo Von Erich, Spiros Arion, this Johnny Rivera's and how he was a face. Your Tony Gurria's, just, talk about the Asians of Fuji and Saito and Kamata. And just the crowd just bought into these, even guys like Irish Pat Barrett. You talk about your Salvatore Malomos, and it's a little bit later, but you guys get the gist of how it really was and what a time it was and how we all were together. Let's get back there. Let's bring faith back. Anyway, Baron von Raschke, Ivan Putski, again, classy Freddie Blassie. I can't say it enough. They start off, and again, von Raschke, the typical faces, the foreign object, the selling, the ref checking them out, the fans trying to point it out, just playing the crowd and how much it added to the credence of the match and the storytelling and the psychology and the fans and like a live opera, a show. That's what it was back then. Again, I'll say it. You got to get where you want to go. You certainly should be appreciative of where you are. Understand where you came from. And I'm going to keep saying it here on Chaos Corner. And the boos for Von Raschke, really were something. Again, I talk about it, whether it was Killer Kowalski, Stan Hansen, just the different guys, Bruiser Brody, and how the response they got. And just, again, the simplicity of the sport and the knowledge that is lacking and doesn't go on today. And I don't want to sound like I'm bitching. And maybe I am a little bit. Again, Putski, those trademark side headlocks, those big right hands like San Martino did. I'll give Von Raschke credit, and a lot of people go back and watch his matches. The clubbing forearms. Von Raschke was a big guy. Tying up Putski on the mat and seeing the Polish power, the super pole on his back in the day and being grinded out in his legs by Von Raschke. Brilliant strategy, and not a lot of people did that to the super pole back then. So smart storytelling, and Von Raschke was an unbelievable talent. And believe it or not, with these two guys who we cut short, now they weren't great workers, and it's just boring, and all this different stuff that people talk about, the OGs and the classics, and go away, old man, you're wrong. They went to a 30-minute draw for the second time. Putski and Von Raschke, 30 minutes. I don't care how you got there. They went 30 minutes, and now we're selling the big match coming up between the American Dragon Bryan Danielson and the AEW heavyweight champion MJF, which is the times of how we are in 2023. Here's two guys that people didn't consider great grapplers in today's standards. Von Raschke and Putski went 30 minutes twice from the draw. Let that sink in, and I can appreciate that. And that was this card. Look at the matches and the talent on the cards and the episodes I've been going on here. 2/3 of the guys on there are Hall of Famers or legends or heroes, and guys that you look back and realize that they built and they were carpenters. And that's what we're doing here. As we go through, episode 7 in the summer of 1977. And just to show you how I talk about the main events and what happens afterwards. Another special match that night in the summer of 77 at Madison Square Garden. The debut from Samoa, 275 pounds, colorful with the tattoos, the tradition, the whole 9 yards. From Samoa, the High Chief Peter Maivia debuted on this same card, June 27th, 1977 at the Garden, the WWF. Pehe Aoi, Melihini Kane, Pupule Wiki Wiki, Mahalo Kane. Unbelievable. He looked tremendous, in great shape. The history of myself and the Samoan dynasty, even to today's day, and how it sells with the bloodline. Check it out, watch it, and that's why you come here. The debut of the High Chief, Peter Maivia. Unbelievable. I've told you the stories how back in the middle 90s, I was talking to Leah Maivia, trying to get booked for Polynesian Pacific Pro Wrestling, Polynesian Championship Wrestling, transfer over as a corrections officer, because that's what I did as my real profession in law enforcement, behind the walls for 25 years, to see if I can get over there and get booked. She said, "Oh, Big Daddy, you come over, we use you." I never got over there, but thank you, Leah. And just the history with the Samoan dynasty. Against 273 pounds from the Isle of Malta, another large individual, like all the guys were, mid-carders, undercarders, jobbers, superstars, heroes, legends, champions. Baron Mikhail Cicluna, the big Baron, but we know what happened. Off a simple turnbuckle roll-up, Cicluna charged the High Chief in the ring, misses him, goes chest first, a la what Bret Hart did in the 80s and 90s. The Chief rolls him up for a pin. Simple. 2 minutes, 9 seconds. Your winner, the High Chief, Peter Maivia. King Kamehameha was happy that night, June 27th, 1977, as I'm happy that you guys are here for this series with the OG podcast, looking back on WWWF Old School. Fans, thanks for being here. We had a good time. Come on back. We're going to continue to do this. Follow along on the network with your buddy, the Guardian of Chaos. I'll say that to say this. The Lounge, don't you dare miss it.